Hey, welcome back. I have not done one of these in absolutely ages and it feels so good to sit down and do another video for you all. This week I thought I would go into catering, as it's a subject that I haven't really touched on and something that I've been involved in over the last 10 years quite a lot. I have seen so many different catering options over the years, the things that have worked really well, the things that haven't worked so well, equally the things that the guests absolutely love when it comes to catering and the things that they really don't. So I thought I'd wrap this all up into one video for you and I really hope it helps. Catering is such a huge part of your wedding budget. It can be up to 25% of your overall budget. So of course it's something you're going to want to get right. Equally, it's something that your guests are really concerned about when they turn up at your wedding day. They really want to be fed well and they really want good food. And it's often the thing that they'll remember after your wedding. How many people have you spoken to and asked them about a wedding and their first comment is the food was incredible or the food was awful? The food choices really do stay with them after the wedding. When it comes to choosing your catering, often it's included with your venue and you won't have a choice on who's actually catering for your wedding day. So it's really important before you sign any of those contracts that you have a chat with the venue and ask them what the food's about. Ask them what the price is, ask them what their menus are, and if you don't like it, have a conversation with them. What are the options? What can you change? And equally, is there going to be a charge if you go and change anything? But if you're going for more a dry hire venue or your venue doesn't include caterers, then you're going to have to go out there and source your own. And there are a lot of little things you're going to have to look into. So I know so many people get really daunted by this and just don't know where to start. So that's what I'm going to do today, round up all those little bits and let you know what you need to be looking out for. If we haven't met before, my name is Beth and this is my little wedding world where each week I get to share hints, tips, stories and secrets into the wedding industry to make sure that your wedding planning journey is that little bit easier and way less stressful. There are so many different types of catering and catering that suits all different types of budget, and you really do have to be realistic when you start looking at catering and how much it's going to cost you. Don't go expecting to pay £15 for a 3-course sit-down meal. It's just not going to happen. Saying that, there are so many different options that will cater for your exact needs. There's an awful lot that goes into external catering, from setting up on location, hiring in kitchen staff, setting up, bringing in the meals, bringing in the food, prepping, everything like that. So it tends to be a lot more expensive than what you'd pay in your standard restaurant. I usually say around kind of £35 to £50 is a good budget to have on food, but of course there's things at either end. You can go up as far as you want and equally there are options that are a lot cheaper too. If you have the option to go out and find your own caterer, then there are so many different ways to serve it and so many different styles to go for. Today I'm going to give you a few of the most popular options, but if I've missed anything below or you've got some ideas or things that you're doing for your own wedding day you'd love to share, please pop them in the comments. I love to hear what everyone has to say. Let's start with kind of the lower end of the budget and the cheaper options for catering on your wedding day, and this often comes in the form of street food vans. Now, they've been quite popular over the last few years, but there are so many things you need to consider when it comes to them. It can vary from fish and chip vans, from pizza, through to international cuisine. You can go for Japanese, Mexican. There are just so many different options to look at. I say this is the cheaper option to go for. It can look initially cheaper when you look at it and they say it's going to be $7.50 a head, but you do need to consider all the other areas that go into it. And there is a lot to think about when it comes to street food catering, from how you're going to serve it, how guests are going to actually eat it all in one go, how you're going to clear up, how you're going to park them up close to your venue, and all those little things. So if you're interested in street food vans and you want to know more, please let me know in the comments and I'll do a whole video dedicated to that. Next on the list, buffets, and they kind of have a little bit of a bad reputation for being kind of cheap finger food buffets, and they don't have to be at all. There are so many different options as with street vans, and they can be anything from your more basic finger food, or they could be right up to full-on fancy display tables, really elegant food, or fantastic dessert sharing tables as well. As with everything, if you get a price for a buffet, you need to work out exactly what you're paying for. Are you paying for the buffet, the food, all the setup, plus the staff and the people to serve it and clear it away again? Or are you just paying a company to come in, set it up, and then go again? Will you need to hire the table it goes on, the linen, anything like that? How are you going to clear up at the end of the day? Do you need cutlery, crockery? The list absolutely goes on. So you definitely want to check what's included when you look for a buffet price. What's really great with buffets is guests can actually just go up and have what they want. They can have as much of it as they want as well, and they can go back a second time if they're hungry, or if they don't want to eat that much, they don't have that much. It makes it so much easier for the guests to make the decisions, and ultimately lots of people are going to be happy. On the flip side, naturally, the bad elements of having a buffet are are the queuing time for everyone to go up and get their food, you do need to look at that carefully and work out exactly how you can do it. A great way is to do this table by table and have an order rather than everyone just hit the buffet in one go and it'd be absolute chaos. And the other side of it is that there can be a lot of wastage from a buffet. You have to cook an awful lot more food or provide an awful lot more food because there's so many different options. So if you're looking at cutting down on your food wastage, buffets may not be the best option. The next one I wanted to mention is the most popular one that I deal with at weddings, and this is family style or sharing plates. This can be anything from an afternoon tea through to sharing platters, and it's a real conversation starter on the table. People have to ask to pass the food, they'll have a chat amongst themselves whilst they're helping themselves to food, and it goes down really, really well. Again, it gives your guests the option to have as much or as little as they want, and they get to choose what they want on the table. If you've not seen family style served before, it's where kind of think of it as a mini buffet put on your table. There's plates brought to each guest table and they're put in the centre of the table. Each guest has their own empty plate and they just help themselves from the middle of the table. And as I said, this is becoming such a popular option. It can be also kind of merged with the plated option, which I'm going to go into in a minute, where you get kind of the main item plated on the dish and then sharing boards and sharing bowls in the centre, if that's what you want to do. And it makes it a little bit more formal if you go that way. But sharing platters are a great way. They're a great conversation starter, as I said, and equally they don't cost as much because there's not as many staff involved in actually clearing and delivering the food to you. So I've worked my way up the list, kind of going from the most informal options of your street food vans and your buffet items through to sit down meals where your plated items come into it, and now on to your most formal and most traditional option, which is plated meals. This is usually the most expensive option because it's going to require the most amount of preparation, the most amount of chefs in the kitchen, and obviously the most amount of servers to kind of bring the food to you at the tables. So if you're looking at cutting down your budget, then having a plated meal may not be an option for you. But as with every option, there are ways of doing it and changing the actual food to make it a cheaper, more affordable option. When it comes to having a plated meal, you may decide to go for one option to fit all. And that's kind of the most common one I actually see nowadays, as it means you just give out one option, you don't have to ask your guests what they're having, and you just then prepare for any special diets. So if you've got any gluten-frees, any vegans, any allergies, anything like that, they can all be covered with a separate dish. On the other hand, you could go for a choice menu, and this is going to be your top end and the most expensive and also complicated for you. You're going to have to ask your guests what they want, you're going to have to get options back, and you're going to have to tell your caterer about this in advance. Also, from a planner's point of view and someone who's been doing service with wedding meals for quite a long time, I would suggest that you put the options on the back of any kind of table card so each guest does know what they have on the day. They'll reply back to you with the invitation, but guaranteed they'll forget by the time it comes around to the day. The other really lovely option I've seen is actually doing a personalised menu for each person. So when they sit down, they've got the name on the menu so they know which seat they're sat at, and they've got all the options listed out so they can't forget what they're having. People really do have a tendency to look at what the food is coming out and see what they fancy the best on the day and change their mind. Ultimately, that means the people on the last few tables aren't going to end up with what they want because other people have actually eaten their food. So that's just a really simple overview of some of the options you might want to consider when you're looking into catering. Now, when you get in all these different quotes, there'll be so many things to look at, and you don't want to just look at the final quote and make a decision based on that. Have a look into what that quote actually covers, I suppose. You want to make sure that not only the food is covered, but the setup and their travel there, any VAT charges, is there charges for servers and extra people coming in, the chefs, all the things like that. Is cutlery and crockery even included? This is something that catches a lot of people out because they just presume it's going to be included, but quite often it isn't, and you need to hire that in separately. Is there any linen booked? So if you need tablecloths, napkins on the tables, do you have to go and hire them separately? And the other thing I would check is how much it would be if you have got maybe a one-fits-all kind of meal and you've got some special diets you know they're going to have to cater for. Is there going to be an additional charge to this? And also, if you've got suppliers attending the wedding, are you going to have to pay for a meal for them? And do they do supplier rate meals rather than just giving them full cost meals? There are an awful lot of things to look at when it comes to catering, so make sure that you're really double checking those quotes, making sure what you expect to have covered is covered, and if it's not, you're finding out how much it's going to actually cost for you to get in and comparing that with caterers that actually include everything from the start. So aside of actually looking at the price of your food, you're going to want to know it's actually good food. And I've been asked this quite a lot, is can I taste the food before I go and book my caterer? And quite often you're not going to be able to do a full tasting session before you actually book and pay your deposit. But what you can ask for, and in my experience most caterers are open to, is you attending a meeting with them where you can discuss everything and ask if you can have some canapes or a little bite to have just to try the food. There could be a fee to this, and maybe offering, to pay some money towards it could mean that you actually get to try the food in advance, so you don't have to just sign that contract and hope that the food is going to be good in the end. Once you've actually booked your caterer, it's kind of normal that you'll get a full tasting session at some point between the point of booking and your wedding day. And I really suggest that you take people up on this. It's so good to sit down and choose your menu. You can then fine tweak some things, maybe change some items, change some dishes, let them know if something maybe isn't quite your taste or you want a bit more spice in it, and it gives you that opportunity to do this. At your tasting session, I normally suggest that it's just the two of you, or maybe parents or a best friend comes with you, but don't bring too many people, as so many opinions talking about food can get really complicated, and you really as a couple need to just sit down and think what the two of you really love. And I just want to finish on one last little tip, and something that I always tell my couples about. When you are picking your date for your wedding tasting, always make sure it's kind of a similar season to when your wedding's going to be booked. So if you go for a June wedding and you go for your tasting maybe in February, it's going to be a lot colder, possibly snow, and very different to the weather you're going to be expecting on your wedding day. And naturally, if you go to your wedding tasting in February, you're going to be drawn to maybe warmer food, heavier food, soups, stodgy food, things like that. Whereas your wedding day in June, you're naturally probably going to want, lighter foods, fresher foods, maybe some colder options as well. So it's best to do it in the same season. Overall, just remember it's your wedding day and you've got to go with your gut, literally, on what you want to go for in your wedding food. Don't let anyone influence you too much. Everyone is going to like something different, but you're the couple getting married and you need to have exactly what you want on your wedding day. Just remember, you're never going to be able to please everyone, so make sure you just please yourselves and you're really happy with the decisions that you make. So I'm going to leave it there today. I hope you've really enjoyed learning about catering. There is so much to go into in each individual area, and I haven't even touched on canapes, evening food, and all the other things that surround that. But I hope this has given you a great insight into the different options that are available out there, different options for your budget, and helped you make a few decisions when it comes to looking through quotes and contracts. If you've really enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button for me and drop me a comment if you've got any advice to share with people on catering. I always love to hear what you're up to. And of course, if you're not subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button and turn the bell notification on to be notified of any future videos that I post, and I'm going to be posting once a week on every Tuesday from now on. So that's it. I'll see you all very soon and hope you have a great week, whatever you're doing. Bye! Catering is such a huge proportion, a portion even, of your budget. It's like 25% of your overall budget, so it's the part you're going to want to get right.
Oh, get off the floor.
Yeah, don't say that to me like that.